Alright, although I want the channel to be fairly analytic and not just be a fan site, this is going to be a little bit of both angles. We're going to look at the Marvel influence in George Martin, and of course, specifically A Song of Ice and Fire. Some of this is speculative, but I did do a lot of good research on this, and some of this has never ever come out. So some of you will be nodding like, oh yeah, we knew that already, but some of them I think you'll be really surprised at and have not been brought up. All right, first one up is, of course, Khal Drogo, which is obviously Conan the Barbarian all the way through. The sword fighting, the muscularity, the background. Yeah, there's very much, this is just Conan and that's it. There's really nothing else. It's just straightforward lifting of one character to another. Although I would say the Dothraki are really much more original creation. Yeah, definitely Drogo is just Conan. All right, then we turn, of course, to the Starks, and we have Tony Stark, who is Iron Man. And Iron Man's middle name is, yes, Edward, which sounds a lot like somebody we know, like Ned. Now, people are going to jump to the defense saying, of course, yeah, there's an obvious parallel, but George has his story in the Middle Ages, and Iron Man is set in the modern day, and the answer is wrong. No, we do have a story where Iron Man fought Doctor Doom in a time travel story in the Middle Ages, so yeah. I don't know if he read that particular story, but it does seem probably likely that he was aware that Iron Man was in the Middle Ages, so there you go. And then, of course, we have Arya, who at one point in the story is blind, yet able to fight miraculously and does a lot of great karate slash kung fu fighting as a blind girl, which is sort of reminiscent of another superhero who is also blind, but also incredibly skilled, even while blind. And that's Daredevil, obviously. We turn to the Mountain and Red Viper. The Red Viper, of course, sounds suspiciously like another character with red in front of it. And there's going to be a couple in the Marvel Universe, but the one I think most likely is the Red Skull. I mean, there's no real similarity between the characters, but it's clearly not an accident that he chose the Red Viper and the Red Skull. And of course, the Red Skull works with a lot of villains who are named Snake or have like a snake-like appearance. Okay, then we have Melisandre, and Melisandre is, of course, the Red Witch, which, of course, is very similar to the Scarlet Witch. Not in the MCU. The Scarlet Witch in the MCU does not look like the comic books, but if we go with the canonical comic book version of the Scarlet Witch, yes, she looks a lot like Melisandre. So there's a lot of interesting physical parallels between the one and the other. Aside from the name, obviously, scarlet, red, maroon, very similar color. And then we get back to the Mountain, and as hard as it is to believe, there is actually a character in the Marvel Universe that is literally called the Mountain, and that is Man Mountain Marco. Yes, this is a very old villain of Spider-Man's, who, if you really don't know comic books or are not obsessed with them, but being a big Spider-Man fan, I actually got this issue, the 90s issue, way back in the day, and it turns out Marco has been there for quite a while, and his name is, yes, Mountain, and physically, he is not identical to the Mountain, but he does look very, very similar, so I have no doubt on this one, George just stole Marco and just took off some names. And then we have, of course, Jojen Reed. And if we look at the Marvel Universe, we have Reed Richards. And you still think, okay, but isn't this just reaching? They're just names. But Reed Richards has a son called Franklin Richards, and Franklin Richards has psychic abilities. And when we get back to the novels, Jojen Reed has, you guessed it, psychic powers. So seems like, again, George is sort of paying homage, but a little subtly. But it's right there. Jojen Reed, Reed Richards, and psychic abilities. We turn to Ygritte, who, of course, we can see is similar to many characters like Hawkeye with her archery skills, but I think more overall, she is sort of like Red Sonja. She's this kind of warrior woman, and if you know Conan the Barbarian, Red Sonja and him are allies in a lot of adventures together. And just more generally, we have a lot of characters that are similar to the Marvel characters, like, Robert Baratheon really looks like Odin, who is Thor's father. And it's not just A Song of Ice and Fire or even Game of Thrones. There are characters, generally speaking, who mirror characters in George's work. Like, for instance, Blade is a very kind of anti-heroic vampire. And, of course, George wrote a novel with anti-heroic vampires called Fevre Dream. I know some people are going to jump on me saying it's Fever Dream. It's Fevre's just fine. So we see overall there's a really big, powerful Marvel impact in his work. How deep? We don't know. I mean, I've just scratched the surface. Obviously, there's probably dozens more I've missed. But the Marco one, I have never seen a single person, not even supposed experts on GOT, notice this parallel between Man Mountain Marco and The Mountain. So there you go. This is one that is first time ever. I probably will not get credited for it, but yeah, I found it out first. So there you go. For the very few people who are watching, you now know a secret about the Game of Thrones and Song of Ice and Fire that probably many, even hardcore fans do not know. So there you go. Man, Mountain, Marco. Look it up for yourself. Don't believe me. I didn't doctor the photos. It's very real. And of course, probably some guess with the Jojen Reed one, but I don't think many people know that one either. So there's probably a few more secrets, and of course I'm not denying the DC comics have a huge influence as well, but we'll get to that later. Alright, this has been GRRM and Throws Analyzed on the Marvel influence in A Song of Ice and Fire. If you like the content, please hit the like button and or subscribe. Thank you for listening. GRRM and Thrones Analyzed. Please be safe. Thanks again.